Greetings, everybody. My name is Michael Wild, and some people call me the Splunk Ninja. Today I'm going to start a little new series that I call Stuff Splunkers Should Know, or SSSK, or SSK, maybe. And I had this idea a while ago of just talking to people and telling them about things that I think they should know about. And we released a new product. Splunk released a new product 4.2 recently, and 4.2.1 update. And there's some stuff you should know. So let's get started. So first of all, if you are a Windows user, meaning that you're monitoring some statistics and event logs and things like that on Microsoft Windows platforms, Splunk works really well for that. Does it in real time and all of that. But some folks might be using something known as the Windows app. Okay, what's the Windows app? If you've never seen the Windows app in 4.1, it's a nice little overview app that gives you information about event logs, system changes, and things like CPU and memory usage. And if we take a look at the Windows app, it has an overview of the number of events that you've gotten. If you're tracking configuration changes, it's got those too. And it's got a performance snapshot that's being gathered from statistics from WMI, or some people call that PerfMon. So it's probably a good idea to explain how this was done in 4.1 and how it's done in 4.2. The mechanisms underneath are still really the same, but there are some changes that you might not be aware of, and there have been some. It has an impact on the current version of the Windows app. So if you're a user and you see some errors, this is why. So first, if you go to the CPU dashboard inside of Splunk on Windows for 4.1, you see a nice set of statistics for CPU usage and potentially the hosts that you have been indexing data on. As we can see here, we've got things like min, max, and average CPU load for particular hosts, CPUs load split by host, by process, and a few other things. Okay, and if we were to go into the actual raw data, if we do source type equals, let's say, just WMI star, over the last 24 hours, we're going to see a few things. First, we'll see it coming from 8 different sources. So WMI local process, local disk, wilds text, free disk space, and these are all the names of collections in WMI speak in Splunk 4.1. Okay, and if we were to search on something like CPU time, the raw events themselves are going to show you some fields. If you see each event, you see each metric that you were collecting: percent processor time, percent user time, the WMI type, CPU time, which is likely the class, the WMI class that it's going after. And so each particular collection that you set up has a set of events that get generated as a result of capturing that data, and fields that are created from the particular performance counters. So pay particular attention, because this is Splunk 4.1. Percent processor time equals 32, percent user time equals 31. Okay, so in 4.1, also when you went to capture data, if you go over to Manager and select Data Inputs, you'll see the normal event log and files and directories, but you also saw a section called WMI Collections, and that let you collect performance information from remote hosts. As we can see, we have local network, current bandwidth, and if you notice the names of the particular counters, they're sort of written like a programmer would write them in camel case right here, okay? For this particular 4.1 installation, it doesn't really matter. But now let's fast forward to Splunk 4.2, and let's take a look at what's changed and what the impact has on it, just so that you're aware. So here I'm now in 4.2. In my case, it's 4.2.1. Now, if we go to Manager, we got a lot of icons under here, which is great because I'm like pretty things. But if I go to data inputs right here, we now see local performance monitoring and remote performance monitoring, which is good. It's a lot more descriptive than WMI collections because some people don't even know what WMI means. So in my case, if I click on local performance monitoring, I see a set of collections that were similar to the ones in my other 4.1 server. Collection name, available memory, CPU load, free disk space. In fact, it looks a little bit better. Percent free disk space. There's even spaces in there like a human can actually read them, which is good. In this case, I have my polling intervals set up out of the box. Now, let's take a look at what the raw data looks like. The raw data that is dropped into Splunk as a result of WMI collection or performance monitoring collection is changed in a couple of ways. So we're going to pop back to the search app right now before I show you the Windows app. And I'm just going to do a search on source equals what is now PerfMon. Okay, so everything that is WMI in the past, WMI colon collection name is now PerfMon colon collection name. Arguably better because then you can understand what that actual source is. You know, some people, again, don't know what WMI stands for, let alone how to spell it. Now, pay particular attention to the events that are generated. So first, if we look at the sources, there are 3 different sources being collected for CPU load, available memory, and free disk space. Okay? Got it? No big deal. But now look at the events. You no longer have fields associated with each counter. Wait, what? What do you mean you no longer have fields associated with each counter? Remember, we go to source equals WMI star. We had fields for percent processor time, percent user time, and all of that. So there are fields generated for each particular counter. In Splunk 4.2, there are generic fields, which is also arguably better. Because if I was a programmer or someone that was kind of querying a database, it's nice to have the same set of field names for different types of data. So collection equals free disk space, object equals logical disk, counter equals disk writes per second. Better, far more predictable, arguably easier to deal with. It's pretty clear what that stuff is. And of course, value equals 4.63. In this case, we're looking at disk writes per second and free megabytes. So, you know, it's very simple, for example, to just type on collection. We'll click on collection and we'll say free disk space. And then maybe we do something like we'll build a report off that. We'll do a values over time. And we'll select, let's say, minimum value, okay? So not minimum free disk space, but the collection is free disk space and the value is now the value of that collection. Then I hit format report and we should see what the minimum available disk space on my server or set of servers is. We'll just call this disk space free. Hit apply. And we should see a time chart here if there's anything there. Okay, so now we have the minimum value and my values might not be that particularly exciting. As a matter of fact, they're probably pretty small, 9%. So we could go over a longer time range if you wanted to. As I was saying, the performance counter collection process underneath is pretty much the same, but how it exposes itself in the events is different. How does this impact you? Well, one, it makes it a little bit easier to understand if you were doing reports. But unfortunately, the Windows app that is currently available, so this one here that was pretty, if you go to splunkbase.com and you upgrade your version of Splunk to the current one, you'll see Splunk for Windows. And it says 4.2, but it currently doesn't perform the way I would hope it would perform. I'm sure that's probably going to be fixed in some way, and I'm actually working on it myself. But if I look at this, and we'll go over to the Windows app now. Remember, this is 4.2. I got my podcast stuff on there. That's why I got this cool microphone. And we'll hit Windows. The first thing we're going to see is a Windows app that's very similar to the way it was before. We're likely going to see a set of statistics for events. Event logs haven't changed. Source types haven't changed. But unfortunately, the performance snapshot no longer works. And if we look at more info, a lot of times I do this if I get no results, because sometimes I screw up a search just in my daily life. If I click more info, it's looking through the summary index. The Windows app uses summary indexing to just calculate statistics over time. It makes it really efficient to report on. But it's doing a time chart, average percent processor time, average percent committed bytes in use. Remember, those fields do not exist in 4.2 PerfMon, or what used to be called WMI collection. Matter of fact, if you go to the performance management dashboard under CPU, that will also not be functioning as you would have hoped. Okay. So most of this is due to the fact that the structure of the events has changed a little bit. And if we were to go into searches and reports, we'll look at the Windows app. There are summary searches that run. See how these are scheduled? Okay, CPU utilization summary, performance snapshot, all these kind of searches that run. If we look at this search basically here is set, and I've been working on this one. I changed the source to PerfMon CPU load, and I'm actually making some changes to this so that it works in itself. But the searches that generate these summary indexes also do not currently work. So anyways, a lot of cool stuff in 4.2. I personally think the WMI, or what is now PerfMon, or Remote Performance Monitoring Collection, has gotten better, easier to see, easier to use. But unfortunately, as of April 20th, 2011, the Windows app does not function as we would hope. It's not that big of a deal to me. It's a free app, and if you're experienced with Splunk, it's pretty easy, as I said, to generate your own dashboards anyways. So that is the end of the first, stuff Splunkers should know. And earlier, just so you know, when I had that little ninja star, that was actually brought to you by Fujio Suzuki at a partner of Splunk's called Macnica Networks. They're over in Japan. Cool guys. Great stuff. Thanks for watching Stuff Splunkers should know.